Hi guys, Henrik Scholder here with Mechanix Menace. As you might have seen that in the previous video, I have put the car in this rotisserie stand here, and with it in the stand it really simplifies the seam welding of the tube chassis. I can rotate it into all the positions that I need, and it really makes things a lot easier to get access to the different tube joints. Of course, some of them are still not super duper accessible, so it's still a bit tricky to reach everything. But compared to having the car sitting on the stands that it was on before, I mean, this is a huge improvement. So I am switching back and forth, side to side, to try to get the weld distortion as little as possible. I have already seen that it has distorted, which it always does, but at least I can keep it to a minimum. So right now I am going to continue seam welding these square tubes here, which make up part of the huge transmission tunnel. The transmission tunnel will house transmission, of course, and also the exhaust system. The exhaust system will go through the transmission tunnel, so the floor of the car will be completely flat, and that's good for aerodynamic reasons. And also the huge transmission tunnel itself will make the chassis a lot stiffer. Everything here in the cabin will be covered by homemade sandwich panels consisting of two aluminum skins and then a hard foam cell core will be glued between them, and the skins will be glued and riveted to the tubes. So this will hopefully be really stiff, and I also think that I will get good noise and temperature insulation qualities with it as well. So let's do some more welding. So a couple more joints seam welded, then it's just a question of rotating the chassis in the next position for upcoming joints to weld. I will show you how easily it rotates in the stand, and I will also show you how tightly it fits against some obstacles in the garage. So back here I have a couple of straps that I attach to the rear rotisserie stand, and depending on the position of the chassis I have to reposition the straps. So now I'm going to just take both straps off and show you how easy it rotates. When I have the chassis still sitting on the jig made out of particle board and 2x4s, the center of gravity was quite low, so when I rotated it, it was pretty heavy, and I had to be careful so it didn't swing violently. So changing from different positions, I usually had to kind of use safety straps in a couple of stages. But now when I have taken the jig off, just by luck, it's almost perfectly balanced. So as you can see, I can rotate it easily by hand. It needs barely any force at all. I think I actually can use my little finger, which is pretty nice. I lucked out. And there were a couple of things that were a bit tricky in order to enable it to rotate. As I said, I think before, I had to cut off part of the front end of the wheel wells. I think you can see down here. Otherwise it would crash into this reference ruler on the garage floor, and also up here. You should be able to see it. The wheel well here, I actually have filed it down a little bit. It just barely scrapes the loop here on the rear rotisserie stand. If I go in the other direction, it was also very close to my, well, actually I should show this first. In this direction, the wheel well hits the loop here. Obviously it seems like the attachment point is not perfectly centered, and that's why this happens, I guess. And also the kayak is quite close, so if we go in this direction, almost a full turn, then you can hear it scraping here. And as you see, it's pretty close here. Initially I put on some wear plates, basically made out of cardboard, just taped them to the kayak, but then I realized I could rearrange the straps here for the kayak, and I have a wooden block, and I have used a strap here that moves the kayak towards the side, so now it rotates freely without any contact. So it's super easy to rotate and get in the different positions needed. I think I have seam welded, I don't know, maybe 70% of all the existing joints. So I think within maybe another day I will have seam welded everything on this part of the chassis. And then the next step, as I told you previously, is to build the front end of the chassis where the front suspension sits, and then put this back on the stands on the garage floor and realign it to the centerline reference ruler and have it horizontal and so on in every direction. That'll be quite tricky. After building the front part of the chassis, that will also be bolted to the garage floor in the correct position, and then I will connect that front part with this cabin part. Yep, that is it for now. As you can see from the beginning of the video, I have now cut away the corner of the second wheel well, so now I can rotate the car freely through 360 degrees. I don't know why I didn't do that before. It's not a huge improvement, but yeah, a little bit. So I have also seam welded all the chassis tubes for the cabin, and I have also welded up the rear shock towers and most of the wheel wells. I have a little bit more welding to do on this side, but let's have a look at the welding. The car is now upside down, as you can see, and I have put a spirit level here on the rear end of the floor to show you the weld distortion that unfortunately has occurred. I knew it was going to distort, the question was just how much. And here in the middle, this should be level with the rotor panels, but I have a gap here. It's around 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch. I will show you a close-up soon. And the reason for the weld distortion is that some of the welds, or a lot of welds, are on just one side of a tube or a beam. So I'm not sure if this is visible, but this big square tube here for the rear firewall, all the welds are on the underside of it, which means that it will bend like this up in the middle, which pulls the whole transmission tunnel up. And in practice, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not going to influence anything. It's just kind of a blow on my pride. Hopefully I'll get over it in a while. When I initially saw it, I was a bit sad. Now I have kind of grown into it, and that's the way it is. If I had used diagonals, like fully triangulated the cabin and put those in from the start, I could probably have minimized the weld distortion. I would still have gotten some, but maybe not as much. But as I have said before, I'm going to use sandwich panels, and therefore I don't need the diagonals. So, okay, I will have to live with a little bit more distortion. But as long as the car is parallel and not twisted like a screw, I think everything is fine. And let's have a look at some of the welds. It's been really tricky to reach some of the welds. It's been hard climbing inside of the car, and with the weld helmet sometimes being in the way. It's been tricky, and some of the welds are pretty crappy, both due to ergonomics. Sometimes I think I have, maybe since it's been sitting for quite a while, just tacked. I don't know if I've had some rust in the joints because the weld starts bubbling. And luckily the tubes, those welds are mostly decent. For the rear wheel welds and the shock towers, sometimes they look kind of crappy, but there, since you have really long welds, it doesn't matter as much. So in the end, it's gonna be fine. It's just that it would be nice if it looked a bit better. Let's take a walk around and check out some of the welds, and let's start with the rear part here of the floor, as we had a look at before. And if we look at the end here, this is the square tube that sits adjacent to the rocker panel, and the round tube here is the transmission tunnel, so it should be directly against it, but I don't know if we have, maybe it's like 3 millimeter distortion. It's been pulled upwards. Luckily it seems to be the same amount on both sides, so like I said, in practice it really doesn't matter. And let's see what we have else. Here is the front part. Have some tubes joined here, the outside to the rocker panel, and inside here there's a lot of tubes. Some of them, like this one here and this one here, is when I built the chromoly roll cage. That was, I think I started in, when I chopped the roof, so that must have been in 98, 99 something. But there's a lot of tubes here, and it's they are sometimes hard to reach, so these welds have kind of a varying quality. Some are fairly decent, some are not as nice. What's interesting is that a lot of times when I have been welding, it has looked like and felt like the welds are going to be really crappy, but when you're finished they end up fairly decent anyways. And I think that is probably due to surface tension kind of pulling the weld puddle where it needs to be. So sometimes the welds are better than expected when doing them, and sometimes they are as bad as I thought. Here is the rear part, the huge wheel wells. They will be much smaller. They are done oversized, and you can see the rounded corners here that are not necessary, but they are from a looks perspective. I don't like the sharp edge that you usually do when building custom wheel wells or tubs. This here is part, or the bottom part, of the shock tower. And let's see, yeah, you can get kind of an overview view from the rear while upside down. And let's turn the car right way up and have a look. So now I've turned the car right way up. And again, front firewall. Some of the tubes here, like this one and that one, you can see they are held in place by hose clamps. They are just there during the welding to support everything to minimize distortion. And these tubes here will of course be cut down, and then we will have some sheet metal going from the windshield beam to here. And here is where some of the tubes coming from the front will come in. And let's see, what should we have a look at? We can again look at the rear wheel wells. What I did, I think you can see here, I did get some pretty heavy distortion on the inside wheel well wall here. You can see the bend here. I hope I will be able to correct that. I think if I push this up, this will straighten out. What I should have done, there is yet another piece of the rounded corner here, should go all the way down. Of course, I should have tacked that one in before I started welding everything up here, but I was kind of stoked on seam welding what I had done, so I didn't do that. And also, I think all of these welds, they are fully seam welded. That's not necessary. Initially I planned on doing some intermittent welding because that'll hold up just nicely, but for some reason I just feel that it feels better to have a full seam weld, and I think that is the reason why this area contracted and created this distortion. But everything is, I mean, it's really stiff. This is probably kind of a bit over-dimensioned, but yeah, now when I'm not shooting for the utmost in performance, but I want like sophistication, comfort and so on, every bit of torsional stiffness you can get, even if it is kind of with a weight penalty, will be beneficial both for handling and comfort. Performance in itself will be slightly lower, not as good braking and acceleration, but I think it'll be good enough anyways. So on this side, the passenger side, I have finished welding up the entire wheel well on the inside here. Here you can see, this is, maybe it's easier to see on the driver's side. You see it's kind of a cutout in the wheel well for the backrest. I'm sitting really far towards the back, so my back is basically inside the wheel well, and therefore I had to make these cutouts. And also you can see the rounded corner between the inner wall and the tub itself. These welds are varying quality. Some are not so nice, some are a little bit better, but it'll be covered with upholstery, so in the end you won't be able to see it anyways. What else? The roll cage, like I said, that was built many years ago, and I think those welds are in general fairly nice. And here you can also see these little pieces of, what do you call it, bar stock that I have welded the roof onto the cage. The reason for that is because the car is so low, I could not have a roof diagonal, I would hit my head on it. So instead I put this middle longitudinal in, and then I welded the roof onto the cage with 33 of those bar stock pieces. So the roof skin itself will create a super stiff structure which will be torsionally stiff. I think that's actually better than having just a diagonal. And if I if I hadn't welded the roof onto the cage, it would have been better to make the entire body out of fiberglass. But since I have done that, and I have, see, these pieces of sheet metal also, and the hand-made A-pillar, which is welded onto the tube frame or to the roll cage. This means that I will keep this, of course, and the rest of the body will be fiberglass. Previously, I said that the next step was to build the front part of the chassis where the front suspension sits, and put that onto the floor, and put the cabin part onto the floor again, and then connect them with the tubes going through the engine compartment. Actually, I forgot something that I need to do first. I will make this bigger rocker panel, and that is something I will do before I start with the front suspension bit. So I will cut this part of the old rocker panel away, and then there will be, since it's much wider, I basically will extend this part to the side, and on top of this I will have a square big beam here, which will be good for torsional stability and also for crash worthiness, and that one will be filled with an aluminum honeycomb, so it'll be super stiff, and it will be good side impact protection. It'll be kind of progressive in its crushing characteristics. Yeah, I guess that is it. Yeah, let's see what the next video will be about. But thank you so far for watching, and I'm really happy to have come this far with seam welding the part of the tube frame that has been built so far. It feels really good. It's like a kind of a big step in the process, and it's just to, yeah, carry on working. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.